Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Roy Reichbach. He's the CEO at Phenix Real-Time Solutions. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Phenix Real-Time Solutions is really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I grew up in New York, the suburbs of New York City.
Very cool.
I spent pretty much my entire life in New York. Just moved actually recently to North Carolina, where the weather's a lot nicer than it is in New York.
Sure. Beautiful area too. I got to spend some time in North Carolina a few years ago, around like Durham, but beautiful area. Not what I expected, but I was like, not that I thought it was going to be bad or anything, but it was like way different than what I expected it to be, but in a good way. So it's cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
Sure. I studied at Fordham University in the Bronx in New York. My undergraduate degree is in economics.
Okay.
And had some desire to go onto Wall Street, but also had a desire to become a lawyer, and that predominated ultimately. And so I wound up going to Fordham Law School at Lincoln Center in Manhattan.
Okay.
And graduated there and started practicing law in New York City.
Interesting. So was there a defining moment or something growing up that got you passionate about law?
I loved Perry Mason when I was a kid.
Okay, sure.
And I think I think those trial scenes and frankly a lot of movies around trial lawyers and things like that piqued my interest. I also always liked to talk, liked to be on my feet, felt very comfortable in that environment. So I thought those things meshed. I also did a lot of theater when I was younger, and so I was very comfortable being on my feet, doing improv and things like that. And so those skill sets are useful as a trial lawyer, which is what I wound up doing. Wound up being a trial lawyer for a number of years, commercial litigation, one company suing another, and wound up ultimately going in-house for one of my larger clients, which was a software company called Computer Associates, which is based on Long Island, and went in-house to manage their litigation portfolio worldwide.
Wow, cool. Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. And that was my my first foray into the world of technology, and really started to get a foothold to understand not only what technology can do, but the business of technology. And so I spent about a half a dozen years doing that when the founder and chairman of Computer Associates bought the New York Islanders Hockey Club.
Oh, wow.
And asked me and another fella at CA to go run the team on the business side day to day. And I tell everybody I was a sports fan long before I was a lawyer. So it took me a millisecond to say yes. I wound up as the general counsel of the New York Islanders and sat on the NHL board of governors for the club, which is sort of like the board of directors for the league. And while I was doing that, Charles Wong, who was that gentleman, started doing a whole bunch of other things, investing in a bunch of different technologies, real estate, various other things. And I was intimately involved in every one of those transactions, those deals, and those businesses, and sort of morphed more into a business person than a lawyer over time. And interestingly, one of the companies that he invested in was a startup technology company founded by his wife. The company was called New Lion. And New Lion had built a platform for delivery of video for sports, live sports in particular, and built things like NHL Game Center Live, NBA League Pass, NFL Game Pass, UFC.tv, a whole bunch of others. I was their pro bono lawyer when they started because they couldn't afford one, and the boss asked me to help them out. And when the boss asks you to help his wife out, you help his wife out.
Fair enough.
So I I did their work and consulted with them on various things. And then in 2008, New Line had the opportunity to become a public company by merging with a company traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange called Jump TV. At that point,
Interesting.
and I don't know if you recall them from your
Yep, I
times.
do totally.
And so at that point, I was told New Line was now going to become my day job, and the Islanders and everything else I did would be part-time.
Okay.
I became the general counsel of New Line, sat on the public company board, and then ultimately became the CEO of New Line and helped that company grow. We ultimately sold it in a go private transaction with a company called Endeavor, run by Ari Emanuel, who Rahm Emanuel's brother, you might be familiar with.
Yeah.
And we sold that in 2018, at which point I retired.
Okay.
And I was sitting on the sidelines and doing some consulting, watching a bit of TV, and got a phone call asking if I had any interest in running another technology company. I, there's a lot of technology companies, a lot of video streaming companies, and I asked a very important question. I said, with all of that out there, what's the hook for Phenix?
Okay.
And I was told Phenix can deliver a real-time video stream, sub-half-second latency, completely synchronized to broadcast scale audiences. And frankly, based upon my experience in the streaming space, I found it a bit hard to believe. I tell everyone that it was a phone call, because the person on the other end who sits on the board of Phenix didn't see my eyes roll in the back of my head when he told me what Phenix could do. But I was intrigued because I clearly saw an opportunity if someone could do those things for huge changes in the video streaming ecosystem.
100%.
And I did some research. I'm not a technologist, as you could tell from my background. I have more of a business and legal background than anything else. I hope that I learn things relatively quickly and can translate them to others, but writing code would not be my thing. And so I used what I say is I put my lawyer's hat back on. I used circumstantial evidence to sort of assess what I was seeing. And when I met Phenix's founder, Stefan Beerer, I was thoroughly impressed. The most thoughtful, reasoned engineer that I had come across, understood what he had done to build the platform that is the Phenix platform, and believed that he could do what he said he could do. But as importantly as that, a couple of other things that were really relevant to my thinking. One was our chief product officer, Bill Wishon, had come from a decade at Akamai and spent a bunch of time there in the CTO's office. One of the projects he had been working on there was a desire to move to a real-time streaming platform. And Akamai, amongst others, have failed relatively miserably at trying to do that. Bill joining Phenix after kicking the tires on Phenix's tech stack gave me a good deal of comfort that we were able to do what we said we were doing. And then the other thing was, just as I was joining, we were adding a new board member, Darren Fayer, who had been the chief technology officer at NBC Universal and had also been the CEO at Conviva, and had real tech chops. And my belief was that Darren would not join Phenix's board and get out over his skis if he didn't believe in the tech.
Right.
Well, putting all those things together and then seeing that we had some use cases, some customers in certain verticals that were already using the technology and very happy with it. All of those things led me to believe that, in fact, this was a platform that had a huge potential from a commercial perspective, and in terms of changing the landscape of video streaming.
No. Okay. Interesting. So walk us through what exactly is Phenix and how does it work without getting too technical?
Sure. Well, you're asking the right person then. So Phenix has built a platform for the delivery of live video
Okay.
in sub-half-second latency at scale and completely synchronized. The underpinnings of the platform are WebRTC. So if you're familiar with video streaming, most video streaming today is utilizing HLS or Dash. And in a very simple way to explain what those formats do or those protocols do is they require you to chunk video. In
Right.
essence, take small chunks of video, maybe 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 4 seconds. The CDN will collect, or content delivery network, like an Akamai or Level 3 or a Limelight or others, will collect those chunks from the source. They will hold them until they have enough of those chunks to be comfortable that they can stream in a consistent fashion, such that if they lose contact with the source for a period of time, they'll still be able to stream without interruption.
Wow.
And that starts you with what we all talk about as latency.
Right.
By holding, let's say, 3 or 4 chunks of video at 2 or 3 seconds apiece, you're starting from a period of latency of 8 to 12 seconds.
Right.
And then once they get that, there's a lot of workflow that's involved, and that adds incremental latency all the way through from that ingest of the video all the way through play out on your device. And what we see in most instances is latency from the field of play of anywhere from 30 to 50 seconds
Wow.
by most streaming providers. What Stefan Beer and our engineering team took upon itself to do was to start with a different protocol, and that's WebRTC. RTC stands for Real Time Communication. It's built by Google.
Mm.
A couple of the bets that Stefan and the team made when they started out to build the Phenix platform was that they could re-architect WebRTC to allow it to scale. WebRTC is built for speed, not for scaling. It's what we use for things like video chat on a Zoom or a Google Hangout or Microsoft Teams. We see it all the time, and it's very functional in terms of allowing 1-to-1 or 2-to-2 or 3-to-3 type communication. We see each other in real time. We interact with each other in real time, and that works really, really well. Where you see it fall off is when you start to try to deliver those video streams, both synchronized and at scale. And by scaling, WebRTC is historically not known to be able to scale into the tens of thousands, and that eliminates its use case for most broadcast type use cases. So what Stefan bet on was that he and the team could re-architect, meaning rewrite a whole host of the WebRTC code to allow it to scale, to create an enterprise solution, if you will. The other bet that he made was that WebRTC would become an adopted protocol such that it would be available and recognized by every browser that would be populated in the ecosystem. And the
Right.
reason for that is, as you know, if you have to download additional plugins for any type of application these days, it's
Yeah.
sort of the death knell for that application.
Totally.
And so you have to be able to connect directly to a browser without any involvement by the user whatsoever. And Stefan was a good wagerer, if you will. Number one, WebRTC now is an adopted protocol. It is the standard for real time streaming. Um, it's uh, it's just a handshake now with every browser. And then the other piece was the bet on his own abilities, the team's abilities to allow what 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 we've done to take place, namely the re-architecting WebRTC. So if you look at Phoenix's platform on a left to right continuum, on the left it looks like WebRTC when it just starts out. On the right, when it connects to your browser, it looks like WebRTC. And so
Right.
therefore it's just a handshake to be able to play out on your device. However, the entire middle portion of that platform, if you will, is a re-architected WebRTC. It is the Phenix technology. It's 2 million plus lines of code that have
Wow.
been written to allow the Phenix platform, if you will, to scale, to be synchronized, to do all of the other things that are necessary to deliver a real video experience that one would expect today, based upon what's out there in the marketplace.
Interesting. Okay. So obviously what you just outlined is super important with sports. Like nobody wants to see the winning goal 30 seconds later than somebody at the real stadium, right? Because it can cause a bunch of, not only just like it's not as enjoyable, there's a bunch of kind of betting and a bunch of other kind of issues that can come along with that. Do you want to talk about some of those?
Sure. I mean, sports is one of the go-to conversation points for real-time streaming. So, you touched on it in the first instance, which is the spoiler effect. And that spoiler effect is worse today than it's ever been, in that there are more ways in which we receive information than we've historically. It's kind of funny. I talk to a lot of folks in Europe when they're watching
Right.
their football, right, or soccer, and people in different buildings or different hallways are getting the results at different times. They talk about it all the time that way. My experience generally is around, frankly, is around hockey. I remain a big Islanders fan, and my fourth child, my daughter, who's at UCLA, is the biggest hockey fan in our household, and she and I still watch games, not physically together, but at the same time, or what we think is the same time. And unfortunately, um, I have to watch myself because I will be watching on cable while she's streaming, and
Right.
I'm seeing it in 10 or 12 seconds of latency, and she's seeing it in 45 seconds of latency. And I sometimes spoil the event for her. I will, I'll type in something like Barzell, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, and she'll write back to me, "Did he score?" Um, and so, the it does ruin the experience, and the truth is, sports is a shared experience,
Right.
and having people be able to interact and engage around sports content is so important. I believe that ultimately we'll get to the point where all sports delivery is going to be in real time. It's going to take you know years and years for that to occur, because there's so much money have been spent on broadcast infrastructure, and you know dealing with the 8 to 10 seconds of latency that you get from broadcast. It's not going to be easy to change that, but we're going to start peeling away piece by piece in different use cases, where ultimately the consumer is going to demand a real-time video experience. Um, and then, once you get out of just the pure play sports video issue, when streaming of sports, you get into things like sports gambling.
Right.
And right now, for most sports gambling, and it's still relatively early stage in the US in particular, um, no one watches the video and bets on what they're watching, because that video is latent, right? It's delayed.
Right.
What they're betting on is data, which is coming in essentially in real time. We have the ability to power those things together and to create an experience where the end user, the gambler, is able to bet on every play in an NFL game,
Wow.
because they're seeing the data and the video simultaneously. And they're able to see Patrick Mahomes, in the huddle, and make a decision right then and there as to whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get a first down on the next play. Will that play end in a touchdown? Will it end in a turnover? If it's a turnover, will it be an interception or a fumble? There's so many permutations and combinations, and I think not just from a pure betting perspective, but also from what we call gamification, or some fantasy type
Yeah.
engagement, the ability to drive a real time solution is the next generation of that interactivity. If you think about it, and I use being a New Yorker, I use the Yankees as an example. Um, if you're watching the Yankees on the Yes Network, and the Yankees are losing 10-2 in the seventh inning, odds are you're likely to turn the game off, right?
Right.
You find other things to do. However, if you have the ability to bet on every pitch in that game and
Yeah.
decide whether Aaron Judge is going to hit a home run on the next pitch, and you've got sort of a gamification product that you're working on. I mean, you could have it where you're gambling, but you could also have it on the Yes Network, where they have their own app which allows you to have a certain number of points that start every game, week, or season.
Yeah.
And you play against everyone else that's a Yes Network subscriber, where at the end of either that game, that week, that month, that season, you win a prize based upon your position, in the standings. There's a ton of stuff and a lot of engagement that can be around that real-time opportunity, because in the seventh inning, when the Yankees are down 10-2, there's still things for you to do that are engaging
Right.
and give you an opportunity to interact with that content. And truthfully, for the regional sports networks, the RSNs, they could provide a lot of prizes that cost them essentially nothing. Right?
Right.
Things like for lower level victories, things like 2 tickets to a game, or 2 hot dogs and a soda. Or it could get up to where they win a month or a season long contest where they get a signed Aaron Judge jersey, a trip with the Chicago Cubs on the Cubs plane to on the road for a game or two.
Right.
Right? But things where they can incentivize and engage their fans at a much higher level.
Sure. Well, and then who your super fans are, and like you just pointed out, you could reward them. Like if your number one, or maybe you pick the top three or whatever, get to go on like a private plane with the team. Like how many people would love that? People would pay probably a lot of money to do that, right?
And they do. And I can tell you from my experience with the Islanders, we would raffle off a road trip with the team at an event each year, and we would wind up, adding a second one
Right.
because it was so popular. And the ability for your average fan who can't afford, to win that in an auction.
Yeah.
I mean, those auctions are for charity, so it's great, and it's a good thing that clubs do those kind of things. But the average fan is excluded from that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? This would now create, those real, what I would say, those real fans, right? The folks that watch every game, that
Yeah.
are invested in the team on a daily basis, give them the opportunity to win something, to engage at just a higher level. And I think, generates a ton of ROI down the road for the RSN or the club.
Well, and you could tell me if this comparison's kind of wrong, but it seems to me it's almost like what the Players Club at like a casino does in like Las Vegas. You have a card and they can see how much you're winning, and eventually they're starting to upgrade you with, maybe room or tickets to a show. It's the same kind of concept, correct?
Absolutely. It's all affinity, right?
Yeah.
And you get it whether you use the right credit card at the same time.
Yeah.
It's you travel on the same airline more often. Yeah, and every business is trying to mine data as best they possibly can. This is just another way of doing that.
Yeah, I guess it just makes it more fun for the user
Absolutely.
then.
Absolutely. And it applies not just in the sports arena too, right? It's
Yeah.
what I like to think of the Phenix platform is a platform that creates the opportunity for any content owner or rights holder to
Yeah.
engage at a higher level with their fans or with their users.
Sure. That makes sense. Well, and just even looking at, because you guys have obviously worked with some huge brands, but like the Oscars you have here, you have an auction company. So there's other people outside of sports using your technology. Do you maybe want to give us some of those other examples?
Sure, we have a number of auction clients, and if you can imagine with live auctions, especially where people are on the auction house floor, right?
Yeah.
When people are online, they're competing with folks that are standing or sitting, in the actual auction house, and you need to have an even playing field. So you need to deliver a real-time stream, and all the streams of everybody watching have to be completely synchronized.
Right.
So we power Mannheim Auto Auctions, which is the largest wholesale auto auction business in the world. We actually power the second one as well, called Odessa.
Okay.
We have a number of other types of auction clients of ours. It's also a really powerful platform for trivia,
Oh
trivia
yeah.
games, things like that used to be HQ. That was not one of ours, but we power uh, trivia contests across the world. Um, we power entertainment engagement type Q&A opportunities for various customers. So there are a myriad of other types of use cases for interactivity engagement where scaling, synchronization, and real-time streaming are necessary.
Very cool. Okay. So how does it work if I'm a company or an event or something that wants to leverage your technology? Can I license it, or how does that work?
Sure. So our primary mode of interacting with our clients is through what we call a platform as a service.
Okay.
So you essentially connect us to your video source, and we
Okay.
pretty much do the rest. We then take that video, we encode, transcode, deliver it to the ultimate, to the app that it's going to go to the end user. And so, we are essentially an end-to-end streaming solution,
Okay.
and we operate that platform on your behalf so that you don't have to worry about it being up or down. It's up 24/7 to the extent you have a 24/7 service, or on any other basis if you have a service that's less than 24/7. We also, though, have more recently, over the last year and change, developed a license model and an edge model, if you will, where we can utilize a customer's um, own network,
Okay.
and we can deploy our software platform on that network to be operated by our customer. Those are for really very large scale
Right.
potential customers, where they have an infrastructure that they want to leverage, and they have the operational support necessary to be able to operate the technology and the platform, on a 24/7 basis.
Got you. Okay. So how does it work though? Okay, so you mentioned the browser device. So obviously it can go to my iPad, it can go to my phone. But is it branded like my company, or is it
Yes.
branded like you guys, or how does that work?
No, so it's a white label service.
Okay.
So if you're for example, if you're, Mecum Auctions, what their customers are seeing is a Mecum auction site,
Right.
and we're just essentially the technology and the plumbing powering that solution.
Okay. And then how does security play into all this? Because we all know that you can get pirated streams of a lot of these big events. Like, how do you guys kind of prevent that?
Sure. So all of the streams are encrypted. We use state of the art encryption technology to ensure that all the streams are protected. We issue keys and various other uh, techniques to ensure that only authorized users are getting access, both in terms of our customers' access to and starting up of the streams, but also to the end users' utilization of those streams.
Okay. So is there a hardware component that plays into this, or that's up to the customer when you're doing some of these live, sporting events?
Sure. So there is a hardware component. There is some soft. It can be done with our encoder, which is
Okay.
a Phenix a Phenix encoder, which frankly is one that we've commissioned.
Okay.
We don't build the hardware ourselves, but we optimize our delivery of video over those encoder devices. But we also work with numerous other hardware manufacturers to be able to deliver utilizing other hardware encoders. And so there's no requirement that you use ours. We obviously ensure with ours that our service is optimized, and so
Right.
there's an advantage there. But for customers that have existing encoder farms, we work with those to be able to deliver a real-time stream.
Okay. So does the stream, obviously, if I'm on Wi-Fi or whatever, or I'm plugged in at home, fine. But how does it work on 5G or LTE?
So our it's interesting. We're working, frankly, with a couple of providers now who are in the 5G realm to try to take advantage and more of that technology.
Okay.
One of our more recent uh, customer wins, if you will, was a work that we've been doing with Verizon around 5G. And so um, Verizon worked with the NFL to build a super stadium multi-camera angle app for
Okay.
use in the NFL stadiums across the last two seasons, including the Super Bowl in each of the last 2 years. And that app utilizes or is powered by the Phenix real-time technology. It
Got you.
allows for 5G users in the stadium to watch on their app and on a Verizon NFL app, uh, 7 different camera angles of what's taking place on the field of play in real time, and it
Wow.
allows the user to toggle between those angles. So you can imagine if you're sitting in the end zone on one end of the stadium and there's a goal line stand on the other end, it's very hard for you to see what's taking place on the field of play
Sure.
from the seat that you're in. But you could have your 5G phone, which obviously optimizes the Phoenix real time technology, and you can see from an overhead cam exactly what's taking place and not have to hear the roar of the crowd to be able to know that it was a touchdown or not. Um, and so there's a lot of different ways in which our technology plays in that sphere. In addition, we're we have. I mean, I guess I should have mentioned this before. We have an ABR technology, adjustable bitrate technology around what we do. So our platform optimizes for the bitrate that the end user is able to sustain, and so and that's a very from a technical perspective, you know, delivering in HLS or Dash where those decisions are being made not in real time
Yeah.
is significantly easier than when you have to make those decisions in real time and ensure that the end user is still getting a complete uninterrupted stream. And so one of the
100%.
things I always tell everyone is um, our technology is ridiculously complex
Okay.
and
Sure.
requires some really really amazing engineers to have built and to maintain.
Yep.
But it allows us to do a number of different things around protection of our tech, in particular around the patent portfolio that we've built. So one example is that ABR implementation that we've done that we have a patent around. Um, we also have a patent in the synchronization space. So you can also think about how, if you've got folks delivering video in 20 seconds of latency or 30 seconds of latency, trying to sync up those streams should be a bit easier. However, the world is what it is. Not only is latency a big problem in the regular world, but so is drift, right? The difference
Yeah.
between what you and I are seeing at the same time. Uh, to be able to do that in real time is even more difficult. And so that has allowed us to get the patent office to issue us patents around that technology as well. Um, everything we do, I say, is definitely more difficult. When you think about doing ad decisioning, right? Ad
Yeah.
decisioning when you have 30 seconds of latency is a piece of cake, right?
Hmm.
Ad decisioning when you have sub half second of latency is no piece of cake. So
Yeah.
we're we're very fortunate in that we've got some really really brilliant minds who built this platform, understand it, and have built it in a way that allows for all of these features and functionalities to be able to be implemented without losing the core value of what we bring.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I never thought about all the other issues that it causes by being live because there's nothing more live than sitting in the stands on my phone watching what's happening right across the field from me, right? And so it needs to be accurate. And then yeah, if you're going to display anything like an ad or something or a coupon, it needs to be at the right time or it's just kind of annoying and people aren't going to use it.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Okay, so I'm curious then, where does the technology go from here? Because obviously everything's getting a lot faster. Our smartphones are ridiculously insane with the technology that's inside them these days. But where do you guys take the technology next? Do you guys move into other verticals, or where do you go from here?
I think we're still at, if you want to call this a baseball game, we're still in the first inning of real
Okay.
time streaming. Yeah, I think that there are a huge number of other verticals that we can play in and that we will play in. Again, around sort of any kind of engagement interactivity. But I even think of things like, which I believe is still years away for us, is something like the metaverse.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm not sure exactly how Phoenix plays in the metaverse ultimately. But if you
Okay.
think about what everyone focuses on with respect to the metaverse, you need a real time video component and it needs
100%.
to be completely synchronized. And if you're going to build a real metaverse, it's got to be at scale. So the three prongs or the three legs of our stool are all essential for taking advantage of the metaverse, at least as I'm anticipating it and hearing how people are utilizing it. So um, I think there's a remarkable number of opportunities for Phoenix's technology to be significant, as we move into the next 5 years.
Yeah, because well, I didn't think of the metaverse wasn't the first thing that came in my head. Mine was like gaming, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely,
but
and
it's
that's so
basically the same thing.
absolutely right. So gaming is a big piece. That's an area we're focusing on now. Um, you know, the casino games
Yeah.
business is a very interesting space. There's a lot of live dealer opportunities. And if you think
Yeah.
about that, you go onto a casino website and you're playing a live blackjack or baccarat or roulette with a live dealer. You want that to be synchronized and you want that to be in real time. The other piece is the scaling there is a different kind of scaling. You have in
Yeah.
some instances where there could be a lot of people playing on a table because they can play behind, or on a roulette table you can have an unlimited number of people playing.
Yeah.
But the other piece of the scaling is sort of the rather than the vertical, it's the horizontal, right? It's how many tables you can stream simultaneously
Right.
from a source,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I actually had the experience, frankly, of being out of the country and getting COVID just only a few weeks ago,
Oh, sorry to
and I
hear that.
wound up playing on a live dealer site while I was convalescing in my hotel room,
Okay.
and was amazed at the magnitude of games that are taking place simultaneously, and the opportunities there um, for a company like Phoenix.
Right. No, that makes sense. So I'm curious, is the technology there or will it ever be there where, like, to use your casino example, is I can be virtually playing at the same table in, I don't know, casino in Vegas, for example, where somebody's actually sitting physically at the table, but I'm, in another country playing at the exact
Absolutely.
same table.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, right. I think there's clearly regulatory
Yeah. Okay.
issues that are beyond my ken, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But the
Um,
tech's
but
there.
but the technology, it's no different than six of us playing from remote locations, right?
Okay.
If one of those remote locations happens to be on site, it's
Yeah.
on site.
Yeah. Okay. Doesn't matter.
You know,
Interesting. Okay, that actually makes it the technology, like, obviously, all the stuff we talked about with sports and live stuff is cool, but for people out there, like, thinking of business ideas to leverage the Phoenix technology for some sort of other
there,
gaming, metaverse, whatever they
there,
come up with, I think is actually really
and
fascinating.
there's plenty of other use cases, right? The medical profession has a whole host
Yeah,
of different use cases where real time synchronized streaming would be important. Education has that as well. We saw a lot of interest around remote learning as a result of the pandemic, but
yeah,
there are a lot of use cases. Remote proctoring of exams and things like that, where that has to be in real time. There's I will tell you, when I speak to prospects, clients, and others, one of my standard lines is, I know what our technology is capable of,
Yeah.
You know your business way better than I do, and you're going to have. I may have 2 or 3 ideas on how you can use the Phenix platform. You'll probably have 10 times as many ideas because
Interesting.
you know how you know what your business is, and you can envision how to utilize this sort of foundational technology to extend your interaction with your customers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So the medical thing got me thinking. So could you potentially do like have a surgeon do surgery on the other side of the world because they're a specialist in something
Yeah.
using the technology? Maybe not because there's all the legal issues around that probably, but from a technology perspective, you could probably do that then, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's use cases today where specialists are providing consultancy in a live operating setting.
Right.
The ability though to do this at a broader scale for medical education and various other things, I think is ripe as well.
Interesting. No, that's totally fascinating. So I'm curious, is there any other use cases that we haven't covered yet, just to get people thinking about how they could leverage the technology?
Um, I'm sure there are plenty of others. One I would like to mention, which we touched upon a bit, but I think it's important to understand how much of a differentiator Phoenix is from a
Okay.
scaling perspective. One of our biggest customers is Stats Perform, which you may know is a big data and content provider in the sports world,
Yeah.
and their customer Racecourse Media Group, which owns and operates 70 racetracks across the UK and Ireland, and we power the delivery of video from all of their tracks um, through Stats Perform to bookmakers across the UK and Ireland. They have a festival that occurs every year in March. As a matter of fact, I'll be there in a couple of weeks at Cheltenham. It is the largest attended horse racing festival in the UK. It's over 4 days. They have 7 races a day.
Cool.
Last year, empowering that festival, every single race we delivered to over 100,000 peak concurrent users, with
Yeah.
a couple of the races at 500,000.
Wow.
Um, that scaling is unprecedented in the world of WebRTC.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, one of the things when I joined Phoenix was we hadn't done events that had scaled to that level before. And I had always heard sort of the pushback, which is WebRTC can't scale,
Right.
right? And that's a difficult hurdle to overcome when everyone in the space understands how WebRTC was built
Right.
and therefore comes at you with the baseline understanding of your platform can't scale. Not that Phoenix can't scale, but what
Yeah.
Phoenix is built on doesn't allow Phoenix to scale. So nobody can scale using
Right.
WebRTC. And we've been able to now break through that so that no one anymore says WebRTC can't scale. What everyone says is, WebRTC as intended to be implemented can't scale.
Yeah.
Phoenix's WebRTC can scale.
Can't be interesting. So what's the cost of this? Like or give us a range, or is it per usage, or how do you guys charge for this?
So for our platform as a service, we pretty much have um, 3 pieces of our revenue stream. So the first one is a relatively small upfront onboarding, fee
Okay.
that has a little bit of, to the extent there's a little bit of development, handholding, and whatnot that takes place. But we try to keep that as low as possible so that we don't create a barrier to entry to our platform. And then we generally have a platform or license fee
Okay.
and a scaling fee, which is a variable fee tied to the amount of hours of content that are published and how many are delivered.
Okay. Is there like a
So
range for that? Like what's the rough range of the onboarding
it
and then
really
kind of ongoing?
it depends on the size of the customer, the
Okay.
scale of the business that they have, the complexity of what they're trying to do.
Okay.
some of the features and functionality that they want, and but the onboarding fee is definitely a non-prohibitive one, and while we are, what we do is, in my opinion, something really special. So we're a bit more expensive than a CDN who's delivering with HLS or Dash at 30 seconds or 40 seconds of latency, but we're not. And our customers will tell you, but we're not cost prohibitive. We are a bit more expensive because what we do adds a ton of value.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and you're doing something that they can't do.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But sadly, we're out of time. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and any other links you want to mention?
So our website is phenixrts.com, RTS for real-time streaming. Phenix is Phenix. It's the European spelling of Phoenix. So don't confuse us with the city in Arizona. And we're around 24/7, 365. So look forward to anyone with an interest in delivering their content and engaging with their customer base in a much more interactive way.
Perfect, Roy. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and have a good rest of your day.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kevin. Appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.